I want to thank everyone for the very kind comments that came on the last video.
Great questions this week. The main one is on home remedies in the 18th century. Thanks for joining us today on Questions and Answers with James Townsend and Son. We have a lot of recipes that have currants in them, and we got this question. This was from actually the barley gruel episode. It says, "What is a currant? I thought they were raisins until you said otherwise." Currants are a complicated issue in the 18th century. There are more than one kind of currant, but they don't necessarily talk about which one they're using in these recipes. For more currant information, and this last recipe had currants in them, lots of them do, check out our Savoring the Past blog post that's specifically about currants and all the different kinds of variations there are. I'll put a link down in the description section about currants. Here's a question that came in on that last video that Ivy did. This recipe seems like it would benefit from some orange zest, which leads me to the question, were oranges available or even obtainable during the 18th century? And if they were, how different were the oranges than the ones we see in the store today? Thanks for a great recipe. Oranges, lemons, these things were certainly available in the 18th century in North America and in Great Britain. They were a very common trade item. The oranges were going to be different. Different sorts of oranges are talked about in these 18th century cookbooks. You'll see references to Seville oranges, where they were a bitter kind of an orange. They aren't commonly available in North America today unless you order them or find them in specific kind of markets. So you'll have to look for those specifically, a bitter orange. Or sometimes you'll see references to China oranges. We would know them as mandarin oranges today. So, yep, oranges were available in the time period. Here's one. What is a good substitute for orange flower water? And would it be correct substituting raisin for currants? I'll answer the second one first. If you chop your raisins into smaller pieces, there will be a good representation of Zante currants in this setting. As for the orange flower water, it's hard to substitute something like the orange flower water or the rose water, which was actually in the recipe, but we used orange flower water instead. And they're both aromatics, and they both kind of hit you completely differently than, say, putting orange juice or orange zest into this recipe. It's going to be a hard thing to duplicate. So you can just put some orange zest or orange juice in these, but you won't be quite getting the same kind of effect. Here's a question about the yeast that we used in this. Typically in the time period, they would have called for ale yeast or barm in a recipe like this, or emptins as Amelia Simmons calls them. We of course don't have access to that each and every day like they might have had, so we just used a regular packet of yeast. I think I used fast-acting yeast, or Ivy used fast-acting yeast in this one. We made a kind of a barm substitute. We put a little bit of flour in with the water and just let that yeast kind of percolate for a little while, and then mixed it into our mixture. It's really the best substitute if you don't have barm available at hand. Here's a question that came in on the last Q&A. This person's sewing an outfit. She says, I'm sewing an outfit with patterns that I got from you. And I was wondering, for an outfit with waistcoat, breeches, and overcoat, what would the coloring for an upper class gentleman be? Would they be all the same color or different? And if so, do any of the three typically match in color? If you're sewing outfits for upper class gentlemen in the 18th century, really the sky's your limit. The outfits quite definitely matched. That idea of a three-piece suit in the time period, all made out of the same fabric, pretty common, especially for upper class gentlemen. And they had some wonderful fabrics available to them in the 18th century, beautiful things. Many of these are still available to be seen in museum collections today. So I would suggest, if you're going to spend the time and effort to make an upper class gentleman outfit, you should do a bunch of research, check out online, look for gentlemen's clothing of the 18th century. You're going to find some beautiful pictures. Go on Pinterest. you're gonna see some amazing outfits from the time period. It would probably be hard to duplicate today the wonderful fabrics they had available to them in the 18th century. Here's the main question. This one's from Susan Larson. She says, new to your channel and absolutely obsessed, wondering if you have any info on what kinds of medicinal items women would stock or maintain in a home apothecary. Excellent question. And medicine was an important part of life in the 18th century, and it was difficult. Even today, medicine's difficult. It's expensive. In the time period, doctors weren't necessarily possibly as trusted as they are today. So home remedies were very common. So a good half of the English cookbooks from the 18th century have home remedies or a medicine section in the back of the book. And they're all very interesting and sometimes kind of hilarious. And in fact, last week's Q&A, that recipe for stitch water with the stone horse dung, that was out of a medicinal section, right out of one of these cookbooks. But here you go. For the pains of gout, there's a recipe for if you've got gout or ague or a plaster for colic. Many cold remedies. Let's see, there's how to whiten your teeth. Here's a recipe for making your own Daffy's elixir. It's one of those kind of patent medicines in the 18th century. That's where patent medicines really sort of start to come in on their own and become very popular. So you'll find recipes for making duplicates of your own patent medicines in these. So here are a couple of funny examples. Here's to cure an ague. Take small pack thread, as much as will go 5 times about the neck, wrists, and ankles. Dip them in oil of amber twice a day for 9 days together, and keep them on for a fortnight after the ague is gone. I'm not sure how that would help your ague. I'm not even sure what ague is in this case. Here's a cure for a violent bleeding of the nose. Let the party put their feet in warm water, and if it doesn't do, let them sit higher in it. So you're supposed to sit in warm water if you've got a violent nose. I don't know about that one. We've got recipes for dropsy, a bruise ointment, a good vomit if you need to do that, ointment for a scald head, and an admiral powder for the teeth. I've got some other amazing medical books from the 18th century, and they're all a fun read. So I hopefully will be able to put together an episode, possibly with the help of some of the folks down at Conner Prairie, where we touch on the medicinal topics a little bit more. So first, I really want to thank all the amazing support that we get out there, especially those folks on Patreon. Thank you so much for supporting us in that way. And also people that go over to our website and purchase products. Really, that is how we do what we do. Also, we are working so hard, especially this time of year. You would think January, February gets really quiet. Right now, we're super busy working on the brand new catalog. And we're working on revamping our website, and we're going to be heading out next week to do special cooking episodes on location. So, wow, we are busy. So be patient with us as we keep churning out this new material. And I want to thank everyone for all the wonderful comments and the great questions. Keep them coming. Thank you so much for watching.